7:03.
Okay. Good evening. I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting for the Village of Holly to order for September 26, 2018. You all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could we have roll call, please?
Okonski,
Yes.
Christian, Clevin has been excused. Steele,
Yes.
Putz,
Here.
Hayhall has been excused. Goldsmith,
Yes.
Cullis,
Yes.
Cruikshank.
Yes. Make the motion to excuse Ms. Clevin and
Hayhall.
Hayhall. I'm sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any none? So moved. All right. Hopefully everybody has looked over the agenda, and are there any changes that need to be made? If not, we approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, agenda approved. Approval of minutes of July 25th, 2018.
I didn't see anything that was out of line, so I will make a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All approve of the minutes for 2018, July 25th? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Can I get a volunteer to read the statement of purpose, please?
The mission of the Holly Village government is to enhance our community's quality of life. Our organization strives for the quality services, responsive action to citizens' requests, and a cost-effective government. We promote citizen participation, proactive decision-making, and environmental quality. Most importantly, we shall always serve the citizens of Holly. The Village of Holly will be a prestigious historical village that is a green residential oasis from the city and the center of commerce and activity for the region.
Thank you. All right, tonight we have a public hearing, consideration of the amending section 157.080 and 157.096 of the Village of Holly zoning ordinance. We need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
All right. Motion is approved. Public hearing is now open. If there's anyone here in the audience that would like to get up and comment to the amending the sections so mentioned, please go to the microphone, state your name and address, and tell us anything you'd like to say.
Marlo Davidson, 434 Sherwood Court. I haven't been here in a long time. What are they?
Well,
I could let her read this
there,
if she
yeah,
wants.
yeah.
Oh,
Here's the
Actually, if we just read the opening paragraph, I think it would.
everybody know what it is.
Basically, there's some changes that we're proposing to make to the PUD section of the zoning commission. And a couple of the items were to clear up the language. The other was about the density allowed and building height and setback in the floor area that are allowed. The item he gave you there actually has the red areas where it talks about what has been changed and marked out. We
remove some of the zoning.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
sure.
So essentially what we did is a few of them were clerical changes, such as we always refer to the planning commission as planning commission, so I took out the zoning commission because generally
Seeing no one move forward, can we have a motion to close public comments?
So
Public
moved.
hearing.
So moved.
Support.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Going on to public comments. If anyone in the audience would like to get up and speak about anything, they're more than welcome to do so at this time. Seeing no one move forward, next item is old business, which there is none. New business is a site plan request. The Village of Holly's new fire department hall proposed to be at 114 North Saginaw Street, Holly, Michigan. All right. At this time, if there's anyone that would like to get up and speak about the proposal and anything to do with the site plan, where there might be some confusion and or comments they want to make, stand up and speak.
Good evening, everyone. So provided
Name
with
and address, please.
this is Caitlin Haben, your planning consultant. Before you, we provided the September 12th review letter of the proposed site plan. Since that point in time, we had received revised site plans. So I was able to note down some of those proposed issues that were addressed based on the revised plans. There are some specific action items the Planning Commission still needs to consider. So I would like to go through those different items outlined by the letter and let you know if they've been addressed or anything that is otherwise outstanding.
Okay.
As many of you are aware, this is the proposed site plan is regarding the new fire hall location located at 414 North Saginaw Street. Informational requirements that were outstanding. The Planning Commission does have the prerogative to waive these informational requirements. Item 4 is the sealing of a professional license. Generally, this is something that we just require as far as being on the final set of site plans. Item 12 is regarding the existing land uses.
So you're saying that was not provided on the new plans?
Correct. Talking about the surrounding kind of demographic idea, this item was cleaned up where the wrong zoning district was noted, so it's actually in the the industrial zoning district, so that was clarified and cleaned up. It does meet all of the requirements for the industrial district, so there wasn't any issue there. Item 14 is regarding the location of existing and proposed structures within 100 feet of the subject property. It would be something the Planning Commission could consider to waive. That information was not provided on the revised site plans, but due to the nature of the project not proposing any changes to the heights of the existing building or surrounding buildings, potentially that might be something the Planning Commission be willing to waive. Item 17 is regarding the number of employees and floor plan associated with determining parking calculations. That information has been provided on sheet 6 of the revised drawings. Item 22 is regarding the lighting information. A photometric plan as well as different details regarding those different lighting features has been provided. And then item 34, to just clarify if any mechanical equipment or facade work is being proposed to be done to the building at this point in time. Moving down to zoning compliance, section 157.036 regarding.
Can I interrupt 1 second?
Yes, sir.
All right. Back to item number 22.
Yes.
You said that information has been provided.
Correct.
Does it meet zoning requirements
Yes.
with the fixtures and everything?
Yes.
Exact same ones as Dollar Tree.
Okay. And then on the item 34, the missing mechanical and so on and so forth and facade, the plans I saw here, they were calling out, like metal facade and different things on these sheets that were provided to us.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I saw the facade drawings and the information. What information are you referring to that's missing there?
I guess maybe I'm misremembering. I'm thinking of. Yes.
Well, it doesn't say that it's all missing. You say there is missing information regarding the mechanical details.
Right, so generally if there's any type of proposed air conditioners that are located outside, we do require them to have screening associated with them. And then building facade work, just indicating if there's any improvements being proposed.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what we are proposing is trying to turn it into an 1895 building, looks-wise. We want to remove the metal siding in the front of the building and the garage door side, and also the back building, the garage door side. We will be replacing the garage doors with windows, garage doors with combination of windows, arching the doors, having the gable in the front like a flying buttress, if you know what that is, adding windows, and following the architecture of the 1890s. On the side of the front building, we want to do a covered porch with to add some dimension to it. We don't want it to look like a pole barn in the middle of town. We want it to blend. So that's been our objective, and we've talked to Ron Campbell. We've talked to a lot of people to try to make that happen. And do you have the plans in front of you?
Yes.
A1. So that's our proposed elevation from the north looking south. The windows on the bottom picture have been changed for a couple reasons. There are more of them in the bottom, and there's not the arch. We'll do wood arches in the over the upper window in the middle, but that'll be the focal point. We have trusses there, and it's just impossible to make that change. So the windows will be 4x6 upstairs. They'll be on that elevation. There'd be 8 windows on that side, and they would be, there'll be corbels, and we will follow the architectural style.
I guess somewhat of my either directional inability. The back building, okay, which you're calling the north elevation.
no,
No.
that's the main building is the north elevation.
So if you're standing at Dollar
That's
Tree
why-
looking that way,
That's why I envision the north elevation to be is the main building as it sits closest to the street.
that is.
All right,
But this is the elevation facing north.
right. With all the doors in it for the fire truck, I'm assuming. The existing buildings, don't have all those doors in there.
They do.
They do.
They have that many doors in there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. The matter of fact, we'll be removing 2 of the doors that are in there. We'll reduce the number.
Okay.
When you're done, you'll have a total of 6 doors.
On the front building, we'll have 6, and the back building will have 4. Total of 10 doors. Right now, we have 6 on the back building as well.
Okay, but in the plans here, they have, or at least what we have drawings of, you don't have anything proposed for the back building.
We weren't going to do anything to it at all, but we want to put at least doors on it to make it, because it's ugly, and the doors have been run into prior to us getting it. So we want to change just the front of it to make it
Are you
match.
doing that all at the same
So
time?
you're
All at
gonna
the
do
same
like a
time.
Phase 1, phase 2, or you?
all at once. All at
Alright,
once.
So then we'll need documentation to,
Really, that's just re-siding, honestly. Changing doors and re-siding. We're not doing any fancy facade. It's just materials at that point.
And I understand that, but there again, all the calculations are based on square footage, and I'm not sure if that square footage was included.
The total square footage as far as required with parking was
For both structures.
correct.
And that, okay.
As far as mechanical, you had a quick question on that. Right now, as you stand at the donut shop looking at that elevation, the west elevation, there's a condenser sitting outside and on the right border of the property. The only place we can put and we'll have two, the only place we can put air conditioners is in that area just because we have no setbacks. So we would screen that and make sure that that's not obnoxious from the street or the neighbors.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No problem. So continuing to zoning compliance, when we were talking about item 1 or section 157.036 regarding waste receptacles, this is something that the Planning Commission has the authority to waive or modify different requirements regarding the enclosure. The applicant is proposing to utilize curb pickup due to the nature of it being a fire station. They don't anticipate having a lot of waste being generated, even exclusively for the primary office component of the fire station. And so the Planning Commission would need to waive the use of requiring a specific trash enclosure unit.
And just so the commission does know, the existing fire station does use roll cans to the curb right now, and have.
I guess my question would be on that twofold, okay? What is speculation or rumor, which is hard to act on, but I still want to ask. Second being, if a waste receptacle is needed in the future, because for whatever reason, is there an area of which it could be put if it became necessary?
There is. In the back of, between the two buildings, there's an area that we could, it shows trees now, but there is some area where we could do that, and it would not be.
And the reason I asked that was a speculation that at one point they were talking about possibly down the road sometime making like a community combined structures between everything, being with the village, and thus then you would need it, or someone would need it, and just looking forward.
We discussed that even today. When we first purchased the building, we thought maybe the back building would be utilized for the police station. In doing some research, having jail cells and radio equipment and all the different cable things that and I'm forgetting the word, but anyway, it'd be very expensive to move that there. Also, we don't really have enough parking because we need areas to pull the trucks out, so we would be limited that way.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an action item the Planning Commission will need to discuss. Moving forward to item 2 regarding interior lighting, we previously had discussed talking about specifically the height component. It otherwise is required to be 12 feet, but due to the building where the roof line is, they would be able to go up to that 20 feet. So they're proposing to be, I believe, 18 feet. So below what the requirement is. Item 3 is regarding off-street parking requirements. The provided information on employees was able to determine 4 spaces, but overall 18 spaces are being proposed. And widths are clarified in the revised plans. So that item is addressed.
So, just to be correct, in here you refer to 19 parking spaces, but with 20 being proposed, now you're saying it's 18?
So it was a clarification on how many were counted versus written on the plan. So 20 were written, but when I counted, there was 19. So 18 are being proposed overall. Item 4 is regarding off-street parking space layout, standards, construction, and maintenance. Currently, the revised plans have been revised to show concrete blocks along the northern side, along the Dollar Tree to provide some type of curbing. And I believe on the front side where the parking lot is, there is also, it's a raised sidewalk, so it acts as a little bit of a curbing component. And then secondly, something that is outstanding is that front parking in the front of the building is located off of the street and would require individuals to pull in and then back out onto the street, which is an outstanding concern. Moving forward with item 5 regarding off-street loading and unloading spaces. It appears that there's room located on the site, but it wasn't specifically labeled as a loading space. Due to the nature of this being considered an industrial use, 1 loading space is required. And those are all the outstanding comments that I have.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we ask questions?
Yes.
If I can take you back to number 4 for a moment,
Yes.
under the zoning compliance. When you refer to the spaces that back out into the street, these would be parking spaces in front of the west elevation?
Correct.
How many spaces are there?
1 handicap and I believe 3 other.
So for, and how many are required for the project overall? Not proposed, required.
I have 18.
18 is what you said was proposed, that's what's required as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Did we ever get a determination of theoretical number of employees?
Yes, there are proposed to be 3 at the largest shift.
On the, between the parking lot and the sidewalk, in front of the north elevation, will there be any kind of a barrier so that people kind of know this is a driveway and not just anywhere you want to go? Will
Yes.
there be a small wall, or are we proposing like a 3-foot wall, or?
Well, it's a curb cut.
Pardon?
It's a curb cut. I mean, basically, it's a curb.
The entire parking lot is curb cut?
There's a
You
curb
said
cut
north
to allow.
elevation, right?
I'm talking about the parking in front of the north elevation. If you're looking at the property, the building faces this way. I'm
Right.
assuming the cars are going to park across from there. I'm talking about between the sidewalk and the parking lot. Will there be anything there that?
There really is.
That's the west elevation. You're talking 90 degrees.
At the
to
west
street.
elevation, yeah, but I was talking about the parking in front of the north
I got you.
elevation.
No, she said that the sidewalk would be the only curbing, per se, stops proposed.
Okay. I just, my concern was
The
people
reason.
driving over it all the time.
Right.
I didn't realize that was wide enough to.
We're all talking about this area, correct?
They're talking about the face of the building.
Where's Saginaw Street? Okay, and the building itself sits there. I was talking about the other white space that's kind of, that right there.
That's all curved.
That's all curved and landscaped grass.
Oh, there is going to be some landscape there?
Yes.
That's where the sign is.
Okay, that's what I was saying. That way people aren't just driving off anywhere they want to drive. That's what I was getting at.
And that's where the flagpole was.
Yeah, there you go.
All through here is lands, shrubs and stuff like that, so.
That's all I meant, so it's
Yeah,
defined.
it is fully curved, yeah. Yeah, so the only opening, you're gonna have the opening for these 4 spaces that are there now, and then basically,
And those 4 spaces literally back into the street? There isn't enough room to pull back and go out the,
No, I was gonna talk about that, you know, first off, that's where you're calling one of your handicap spots. So now you're asking for a handicapped individual to back onto a busy road across a sidewalk, and with the, area there,
is that curb cut as well?
yes,
All the way across the front of that?
yes.
the
Just when I think I know the building, I didn't pay attention to where the curb cut.
the zoning area, of 157.049 called clear vision zone, all right? With the greenery in that area, and the closest to what that's gonna be to someone trying to back out, you're also gonna possibly have an obstructed view of pedestrians that may be walking. You're also talking about that being used with someone backing out when someone's coming off of Elm Street, which is only one parcel away, that they would not, you know, that's a very dangerous thing that you,
Well, I mean,
granted, it's legal.
it's what's there now. The ADA spot is not. There's nothing delineated on that, so.
Just because of the size of these drawings, I can't tell. How many feet are there between the building and the sidewalk in front of the north elevation?
Here or here?
Right there where she pointed.
This is a 5-foot sidewalk, basically.
No. How many feet are between the sidewalk and the building?
Between the sidewalk is up at the building.
He's talking on along sidewalk, along Saginaw sidewalk.
Oh,
The entire space.
Yeah.
there is, it's a 5-foot sidewalk in there. So basically, there's a 5-foot sidewalk, and then there's a small, or no, it's just a 5-foot sidewalk, yeah.
Okay, that's in between the sidewalk and the building where the car is going to park. How many feet is that?
So the car is going to park here. There's a 5-foot sidewalk that basically goes up to the building in there.
Yeah, but between the sidewalk and the building.
Between the two sidewalks.
I believe it's 25 feet.
Yeah, you gotta be able to park a car there, so.
Right,
that's-
yeah, it's 20 feet between the two sidewalks.
That's what I'm asking. How many
Yeah.
feet?
20 feet between the two sidewalks.
Okay, so it is tight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a standard space for a car.
I was just wondering if there was enough space where
No.
they could feasibly back up, go over, and come out. But they literally have to back into the street.
No, and if you've been out there, I mean, that's what they're doing now. It's not ideal by any means, but.
Well, I think part of the problem is I haven't seen anybody park there in a long time.
No,
So I, as much as I look at the building all the time, that's not one concept that I thought to look at before I came tonight.
So we're required to have 18. Is that correct?
I guess that was my other issue. It's unfortunate that we have to put parking there at all.
I honestly feel that that's where the duty crews will be parking, and so public, for lack of a better term, will be using.
But can we move the handicap space over to,
Yeah,
because that's what you're talking about, is that
Right.
now you've got somebody that's handicapped that's having to struggle with the back out. Like you said, I like the idea of the duty crew. If they're gonna pull up back in, they've got the lights and flashers to do that. And a handicapped person doesn't have to.
Because many people that drive that are handicapped at all would have a hard time rotating, you know, and it just makes it very dangerous for that type of a backup environment.
It actually should be a reserved parking spaces up there.
for
Yeah, if
employees.
those three were
Employees, right.
reserved employee, that would be wonderful.
And Steve, there's also the opportunity, I think you and I discussed that if we needed to, we could put that ADA.
and I wouldn't have any
Yeah.
problem.
So
I think that would be.
So we just put ADA along the main part of the parking lot.
well, we could actually put that ADA spot right here.
Yeah,
So-
and then that way, like you said, if you took the three that are in front of the building and literally put the sign up that said reserved employee, or what did you use the word?
Duty.
Reserved duty crew, I think that's wonderful. Because
Employee of
those-
the month.
Well,
Yeah.
but we don't want Jeremy parking. there
Jeremy
every
spot.
month. Yeah, no, but I mean, my idea is, now you've got emergency vehicles in those spots, and people see those more than the handicapped person trying to
You got a good point.
maneuver, you know.
Yeah,
We can move that
those
back.
vehicles could be backed in too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And to clarify, the required minimum length is 18 feet. So there's an extra 2 feet, hypothetically.
Right. Okay. The reason I was asking, I couldn't find it on here, and my thought was, is there enough room to back up, go over to the entrance, but there's not.
Right. No, we looked at that, and it, like I said, it's not ideal. It's what's there now. But yeah, we had talked about, possibly moving that ADA space there.
Well, I think that's a great idea. We can consider that done.
Yeah, we'll get that in there.
Great.
Other questions from staff?
So I guess to clarify, my question is, we need to waive number 14 under the planning informational requirements, and we need to waive number 1 under zoning compliance.
Correct.
Okay, let me go back up to number 34 with the air conditioning. Do we need to require plans for that?
Nope. A simple text note that these will be screened would be adequate to fulfill that requirement, just ensuring that it's being screened. And I believe...
Would that need to be included in the motion?
Something simple to the notion of any unaddressed comments in the letter dated or as discussed at the Planning Commission meeting.
To be approved by the building inspector?
You could say zoning administrator.
Or building administrator?
I guess one thing, as far as comments for myself go, is everything that you're saying they've already provided and are going to do are on the new drawings. They're not something that they're going to add on and then administratively, okay.
No.
You told us these other items were already taken care of. You're telling us it's already been done.
Correct.
That was your question, correct?
Correct. And on
Okay.
on the drawings that have been provided.
Correct.
Okay. Let me then start out by making a motion to waive, in the letter dated from Rowe Professional Services, September 12th, I'd like to make a motion that we waive number 14 under informational requirements, and that we waive number 1, which is the waste receptacle under zoning compliance, with the understanding that they're using the rolling receptacles. Jump in with a second, any moment.
Well, I was making sure. Do we need to mention the air conditioning fence, right?
I'm not approving. This isn't a motion to approve. This is just a
Oh.
motion for the 2 waive.
Oh, I see.
We gotta waive 2 things first, then we can approve.
Okay, now we're cooking with Crisco. Okay, I'll support that.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table to waive the requirement of line 14 and support. From this part, I thought we could just do all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'd like to waive item number 14 on the planning comments.
And number 1.
And number 1 under the zoning compliance. That was the waste receptacle.
All right, and number 1.
That was all part of the motion.
Again, so everybody all in favor, yes?
Aye.
Yeah.
Any opposed? None. Okay. Moving forward. The one thing that I am a little concerned about is the lack of curbing. Now, you're saying they were going to put curb blocks. They would be on the north face, basically by in front of the offices or entry area. Or you're saying that's over by the dollar store?
Dollar store is here. We proposed bumper blocks basically along that, just because everything drains into the center here, so it really serves no function except for a barrier on that, so.
So people don't drive.
Correct.
And what about in front of the office structure itself building?
Here,
Right.
that's all concrete in there.
There's no parking there.
Right, it's just gonna be that ADA spot in there, so.
Okay. So there'd be no reason for someone to swing in and pull in that direction? Okay.
Plus you got, obviously, trucks and ambulances coming off.
All right. One thing we didn't talk about either was equipment washed down. Assuming you're just planning on pulling out the parking lot and,
Well, we have drains inside, and we'll be connected to this one.
right, and then
We'll go outside.
are the sand traps and things like that provided?
Oil separators.
Yes. Okay. So, that's not concerned then anymore. We also then need to decide about waiving the loading, unloading requirement area.
I'd be in favor of making that motion to waive the loading and unloading. I mean, I don't see how much there's going to be with the fire department, so I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, so the zoning compliance section 157.150 is now waived.
I think that clears us for a motion to approve with a.
Did we cover the
recommend-
exterior lighting?
Yeah, they said it was 18 feet, the building's 20 feet high, it's within compliance.
Okay.
That's section 3 under zoning compliance.
Section, yeah, number 2.
No, number 3.
I
Well,
see.
yeah, number 2 as well.
Okay.
Exterior lighting and the off-street.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, but the exterior lighting was already said it was there.
And you're replacing the poles with the ones like from Dollar Tree, and you're going at
But it
18
was
feet.
at 18-foot height instead of 20 foot.
Right,
And
they
the
are the exact
photometrics
same.
and the photometrics were okay on that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they said. They wrote it down.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay.
So yes, you should go make a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we recommend approval for this project with the condition that Roe recommends in number 4 that these get the proper engineering and landscape architect, the proper seals as it is in here in number 4, and that it is contingent upon screening for the air conditioning units as well.
Support.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, you also wanted the ADA spot moved.
Yes.
I don't know if that's another condition you want to include.
Do you want to amend, George?
Yeah, I can amend the motion. They agreed to that.
Yeah.
I'm-
That
I'm-
still needs to be done
Okay.
in part of the plan.
Let me make a motion that we approve with the recommendation of Roe, number 4 under planning, that we have all the proper seals from civil engineer, architect, landscape, registered land surveyor, so on and so forth, as it is in number 4. Condition that the air conditionings have screening and the ADA parking space is moved. Oh, and all signs meet zoning requirements. Now, would you like to support, Mr. Cruikshank?
Yes. Continue support. Sorry.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Okonski,
Yes.
Steele,
Yes.
Putz,
Yes.
Goldsmith,
Yes.
Cullis,
Yes?
Cruikshank.
Yes.
All right. Passes with unanimous. So you're gonna have it done tomorrow?
We're all ready for the open house.
Okay, moving on to reports.
If we could,
Or
before we
never mind.
go on to reports, well, I have one thing. At the beginning of the meeting, I texted Galen to see if he was coming to the meeting, and I got an answer back, and I would like to make a motion that we excuse him. He said, sorry, George, should have called. He is at the hospice center in Burton with his grandfather. Tell everybody I apologize. So based on that, I would like to excuse him from the meeting. Motion.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, he is excused.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to reports, ZBA. Who's on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think they've met. Is that right? Do you know? 2 months?
Yeah.
No meeting.
Jeremy's shaking his head no.
DDA.
We have one coming up next week.
DDA.
Holidays was a huge success. Main Street is in its early stages, but it's working. It's very effective. We had T-shirts for volunteers. They were all over the place. We were easily seen. We had parking lots manned. We had walkie-talkies now, and those are really, really a useful tool. They worked out really well. We were really excited about holidays. I actually worked 20 hours that day, between my own stuff, the village, and the moose. So I'm pretty excited about that. The DDA meeting, we had a fundraising class, which was very informative, and we're going to start working on some fundraising. The Waterworks building has been torn down. They're discussing putting up another structure so that we can have the mechanics, displayed so that they can be seen but not touched. Lights in Battle Alley are up. They have adjusted them so that they're not on constantly in the evenings. They have specific hours to accommodate the people that live in the apartments. So that I thought that was nice. We're starting on the ladies' night out planning, and we also had a volunteer appreciation dinner, which I thought was really nice. It was a good fellowship to come together because everybody worked really hard, and the volunteers are amazing. So, and that's what I have.
Thank you. Council?
Let me think. Holidays, again, I could just echo with that. We talked a lot about that immediately after, and it was by far the best one we've had so far. My specific comment is echoing what Lori had just said, that the Main Street team, I immediately noticed there were people out, sweeping the sidewalks, helping pick up trash. That was like so noticeable, at least by me. And we exude a lot of professionalism during that event. So I thought that was super awesome. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the stormwater drainage was approved for the special assessment along North Saginaw, which includes the property we talked about tonight. So that will go behind the buildings there, behind Dollar Tree, and then behind the old Joseph Pontiac building there. So all those businesses will be assessed as part of that, and the village is kicking in a good portion of the money themselves.
How long of an assessment is it?
I'm not sure. I want to say it was 5 or 10. Is it 10?
Typical SADs are 10.
I think they asked for 7.
Is that one 7?
They asked for 7. I'm not sure what they granted though.
Yeah, it was back in July, so I'm going to plead the 5th. I'm not sure. It's either 5 or 7 years. I don't think we went to 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Peddler permits were just lowered in the village. We just did that last night in an answer to some of the food truck issues we were experiencing in town there. At $300 a week, we thought that was a little steep, so we amended that. There's lights that were approved last night that are going down in the Mill Point subdivision right there along Holly Hills, the first entrance there next to the Mark Carney Insurance Agency. It's pitch black. It's been that way since the sub was created. So the sub board there for years had been trying to get it installed on their own, and they were just unable to get return calls from all the electric companies and that kind of thing. So they reached out to the village, and village has kind of orchestrated it. So they're going to send the bill to the association, and so there's no cost to the taxpayers on this one. They send the bill, and the association has the funds to pay for it. So I think that's a pretty good thing there, since it's, like I said, pitch black for that 1/8 of a mile walk into the subdivision. I think that's about it.
Do you know what those vendor permits were reduced to?
It is going to be $50 for a background check per employee, and then it would be $20 a day, $50 a week, and I believe $100 a month is the cost on that.
Thank you, Dave. I don't think we have anybody on parks.
No.
I don't think parks have really done anything that I know of.
Holiday.
Oh.
They're in the process of getting the committees together and discussing what they want to do with Waterworks Park now that the building is demoed. So I believe they meet next week. But they're also getting involved with Halloween that has been approved. They're taking over that now, so it won't be a business or the River Church or, it kind of bounced around for a few years. They're taking ownership of that one. So they're expanding it a little bit too, where it's not only just the trick-or-treating at the businesses downtown. They're going to utilize Crapo Park with some cider and donuts for kids and individuals out there. And I think there's a few more things going on at Crapo too, but I'm not sure at this point yet.
Okay. Moving on to commissioner and staff comments. Lauren?
Katie and I meet quite often, and it's been brought to my attention that we need to start working on the master plan. Is that correct? I understand it's got to be done next year, and I really am not the type of person that waits till the last minute, so I think we need to light a fire and start moving on that.
Yeah, I got it in the budget for this year, so it's active now since June. I think the first thing that we need to do is read. Everybody needs to read and understand the current master plan to figure out what we need to change.
Okay.
So my suggestion, I would say, at least at a minimum, is if there's nothing on the agenda, don't cancel the meeting. Just get together and discuss the master plan.
I agree.
So yeah, I'd say that if there's nothing on the agenda, use it as a study session. Those kinds of things too.
Where we left off, I think last time, is there was a gazillion desires in the master plan, and we need to whittle through those and be able to concentrate on a handful or a dozen versus this whole multi-page list.
For sure. One of the things that we could suggest too is, reading the design charrette too, to make sure that what's suggested in there, we could take those as great ideas, which includes Saginaw, potential boulevards or landscaping or any of that kind of stuff. I'll use Dollar Tree as an example. We gave them the approval, but I think we missed the boat by not updating the plans that they have to be closer to the road and make the parking in the rear and that whole discussion. So that's exactly what we would want to talk about in the master plan, is do we want to do that and, going forward have the businesses be up front? But I think that's, I'd say the easiest thing, like I said, is to not cancel any meetings if there's no agenda.
Okay.
And I love volunteering. Anybody want to sweep streets, just let me know. I'll bring you. I've done Alley Street. It was a horrible mess. I mean, there was a lot of garbage there. And parking lots, Red Devil's my next target. I just don't know when I'm going to get to that parking lot. But it sure does make a difference to get out there and sweep up the debris and the cigarette butts. And it's really coming along nice. Holly's beautiful.
Caitlin, you had some comment you wanted to talk about master plan?
Yes, if you would like, I can wait till after all the commissioners have talked, or I can jump in now.
Well, since we were just talking about it, why don't you jump in?
So some of you may know or not, but we've been in the works of starting to work on that proposal for the master plan. Tonight I have a list of different public engagement I wanted to talk about with the Planning Commission, so that way when we get to the proposal section, which I anticipate providing a full proposal at the November meeting, at that meeting we can make revisions to that proposal if there's additional items you want to include. Different key things that we are talking about including in this master plan update is a relatively comprehensive update, talking about making sure that we're redevelopment ready community, also known as RRC compliant. So making sure that there's a different strategy list, talk about different best practices that they recommend, as well as include the wellhead protection component of it. I know that's something the village had started, but we need to make sure that there's a portion of that in the master plan as well. That's my plan, at least for the master plan, is that you will have a proposal in front of you next month. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect segue, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So there's several different public engagement tactics that we can use to engage the community. And in the proposal, I will be doing a menu style. So I did want to go over briefly at this meeting, though, a more in-depth idea of what these different public engagement techniques are, and then potentially limit, if you wanted to concentrate on a few of these, get a specific price in mind, and then we can decide if we're wanting to do just one of these or a few of these. Specifically for this project. So diving into one of the first public engagements is stakeholder meetings. These are one-on-one interviews, generally take about 30 minutes with different individuals in the community. So this can be talking to the superintendent of the school boards to get a school board perspective. It can be talking to a church group, specifically the leader of that group. It can be talking to a prominent business owner from the Chamber of Commerce. Specifically up to 10 people essentially we're looking at for that. And I try my best to make these in-person visits, so try to book them all in one day if possible at the village hall, just to make sure it's convenient for them. The second public engagement type is focus groups. So now, similar concept, except we're looking at different groups. So this would be potentially a Rotary Club or a Lions Club, having a few members of that organization coming and meeting with me to go over those different things, looking at about 3 to 7 groups maximum, and that's generally an hour interview where we talk over different questions with the different groups. So we can focus it on high schoolers, get the student council maybe involved in that kind of idea, or potentially look at community groups from the different area. The third public engagement is public attitude surveys. Generally, these are surveys, as many of us have taken, talking about different scaling questions, strongly agree, strongly disagree, prioritization type questions. That's something we specifically work with the Planning Commission to develop those questions, to look over a survey. And there's a few different ways we can do it. We can utilize an online version through SurveyMonkey. Usually what we'll do is we'll have a dual where we have SurveyMonkey and then a paper copy for those individuals that still prefer a paper copy. Some communities have included a paper copy in a water bill or something to that notion. Others, just upon request, they have some copies available at the Village Hall or at different upcoming events that happen throughout the course of the master plan process. Next one is the town hall meeting. Essentially, it's like a public hearing. We just have a meeting, invite the public, and talk about the master plan. The next item is a youth charrette. Is generally a half-day event. Usually we try to do something over the course of an evening. We specifically target those who are of school age to talk, and we go over a series of different exercises as far as what do they see in the community, what are their desires in the community, and those different recommendations among their peers. The next one is the community visioning meeting. This is one afternoon, generally speaking. Sometimes we can do 2 different sessions and more late. Well, actually, no. Generally, what we do is we have small groups of individuals come together at one meeting, try to put them at tables of 6 or 7, and they individually at those tables talk about what they like about their community, what are their strengths, what are our weaknesses, our opportunities, and what are our threats. And then we talk about different goals and objectives they want to see implemented in the community. We usually use stickers to indicate different portions of the village that they like or dislike, and then voting on the priority at the end of the meeting to get a consensus on, over all these different ideas, what is the most important things to get done for the master plan. The next one is the master plan open house. Unlike a lot of the other public engagement, the other public engagement goes on while we're still gathering data, still looking over our goals and objectives, still developing and reviewing. The open house we recommend happening pretty much a bit before the public hearing. And essentially what this is after we've gone through our goals and objectives and have essentially as a body have decided what we want, we bring it into an open house setting where we invite the public, usually in 2 different sessions, an afternoon and an evening, just to make sure that we can generally have as many people as possible. And it's more of an open house concept, so individuals can walk in, stay 15 minutes, stay an hour. Generally recommend having some type of light refreshments provided as well, cookies and lemonade, and then have these boards of these different concepts. So if something we want to lean towards is green infrastructure, having a board explaining what's green infrastructure, what are our priorities, and then having a survey that goes along to then have them help us rank, but give it a little bit more of an informational component to the open house, where planning staff will be there, myself and then another individual from our firm, to if there's any questions about it come up, we can talk with them. We encourage the Planning Commission members to at least come to one of those sessions to also hear directly from the public what's going on. And even individuals as a group can come around a board and generate different ideas. The next component is the social media component. So generally there's a few different ways to do this. Generally either utilize an existing Facebook page that's within the village that we can get a hold of, or generate a new page for the project. My general recommendation is just to piggyback off of somebody else's page. I've had utilizing a Parks and Recreation Plan page before the master plan, just because you already have an established following. And our posts aren't generally weekly or anything like that. It's generally before the meeting, or we're really trying to increase public engagement on the survey and posting that. And just letting them know these are big concepts that we're proposing. What do you think about it? Depending on the different public engagements we choose, I generally try to put some of those, I don't want to say controlled controversy, but put out those ideas and see what individuals think of those different ideas. For the City of Bern, this leads into the next one, which is a community remarks. Essentially, this is a interactive website that has a map associated with it, and we have different categories that people can ping on the map and say, I really like this, or I don't like this, or I think this area needs some revision, or can anyone help me with this situation? And on that community remarks page, people are able to interactive, or I want a public art statue here. And what I'll try to do, or what I did with the City of Bern when we did that, is I came up with a few different comment trigger questions where I encourage people to go on the community remarks page. Specifically, they were looking for expanding their public art. So where do you think is a good spot to put public art? I got quite a few different individuals, when they saw that on Facebook, went right to the website and pointed out a few different places. You can link a picture to it so they can say, I really think this would be a good idea here. And it helps individuals understand not just an address, but a whole area of Holly, because a lot of when we're describing where something is, it's not just the address, it's specifically it's near the Dollar Tree, and I can see on the map. This has been helpful for different sidewalk issues as well, using the map. So kind of briefly giving you a synopsis on it. I didn't specifically go into the positives and negatives on each one, but if there's any specifically that call out to you as something that you'd be interested in, I guess I'd like to hear.
I think stakeholder stands out to me. Focus groups. You know, I think the town hall and the community vision meeting kind of seems somewhat together. You know, kind of the same kind of idea, bringing them together and having a discussion back. I don't know how about the open house. It seemed to work well when we did the design charrette, but there was also a lot of money in that for advertising and trying to get people into the door. So
it is on the upper end as far as cost.
Yeah, for sure. I think
the
one that
open house is good, though. It allows people, as she said, to come in for 15 minutes, or they can come in for an hour. If people just want to stop by and take a look.
Well, that seems to me you could almost combine that with like a community vision meeting or something along those lines, and just expand the hours. Like, oh, we're going to be here from 3 to 7, but we're going to be giving presentation at 6 o'clock or something. You know.
So at least with the visioning session, it makes it a little bit more complicated because it's the two different discussions that we have specifically with those groups. Either talking about what we consider a SWOT, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then your goals and objectives, and trying to keep that discussion, as opposed to an open house. We've already had those discussions, and these are our ideas.
Right.
So potentially we could still have people voting at the end of the visioning session, but I don't think you'd get as much bang for your buck, if that makes sense.
No, I hear you. I'd say the one that stood out the most, though, is the youth charrette. I think that's an awesome idea. Since they're the next property owners, what do they want? People are already here for a reason.
What age group are you looking at or considering that type of area?
So for the City of Bern, they also selected to do a youth charrette, and we advertised. They had a little bit of a unique situation where they had 3 different school districts in their community. And so we did try to advertise with all 3, and we did have anywhere from kindergarten, or they were in 3rd graders, up to high school. I think the most productive group would potentially be the middle school and the high schooler students. But we were able to engage some of the kindergarten students, and it actually provided different results we weren't thinking of. A lot of the kindergartners were worried about how many healthcare facilities were located in their community. And it kind of dawns the question, why did they care about going to the doctors? And so it kind of brought in a conversation of, is this something community members, and they're realizing that, well, I have to go to the hospital or so-and-so or so just moving around in the different communities, is that something that they have that impression that you have to go out of your way to get healthcare services. And they were also helpful in implementing any safe routes to schools. They had talked about specific hangout locations. More of the high schoolers had indicated they like to go to the local Taco Bell right down the street, and it was hard to get there because there's no specific sidewalk. So different conversation pieces like that where we do want to increase equality in life, and they were more concerned with a different lifestyle where they didn't necessarily want to go to fast food restaurants, but they wanted a different variety. Now, that's not always something we can tell in the master plan, no more fast food restaurants, and I don't think that's necessarily our job, but it's the idea of a healthy lifestyle being promoted, and those different usual flexibility, which I believe the Village of Holly has to encourage mixed use or anything like that for those smaller startups.
If you want to talk about the perfect age of who to ask what they want to see in their community for the future, the perfect age in some of my classes I've attended is age 9. It's like 4th grade, because they're not at the point of parenting what their parents are saying. They're not, politics really hasn't kind of infiltrated their lives yet, but they have a mind of their own and they can think for themselves, and they've got thoughts and opinions, and they want to be heard. And so if you go in the 4th grade classes and all the school, Holly area schools, Holly Academy and Adelphian, and ask the 4th graders, what do you want to see in our community? They will tell you the truth, the absolute truth of what's good, what's bad, and what they want to see for the future. That's it's like perfect age.
So we bring all 4th graders in. Things to consider.
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the only, I don't know if you want me to continue to my next portion of my report as the planner, but something I wanted to clarify is when we held the public hearing on the PUD text amendments, we never made a motion about recommendation to the village council. So,
that was part of my comments. I was going to ask if is that supposed to go to the next
that would be the
agenda?
proposed next step, especially if there's no other proposed issues with the proposed text amendment, to move it forward to the next body and then implement, and then have it part of the text.
I wondered why it wasn't on tonight's agenda.
Sure, it is business. Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, I guess before we move on, going back to the public hearing, completing that, and our recommendations originally for consideration to move it to council. Opening back up, going to new business. Does anyone have a motion?
I think we would have to amend the agenda first to make it appear on the agenda in order to vote on it.
Is an agenda amendment required? Does anybody know? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. I will make a motion that we amend the agenda to include the recommendation of the PUD amendment.
Support.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We'll make the PUD item number 2 underneath new business as an item for consideration to move forward, recommending to the council the changes on 157.08 and 157.096. Having said that, would someone like to make a motion for such?
I make a motion that we recommend the amendments to section 157.080 and 157.096 of the Village of Holly zoning ordinance to send it to the village council for final approval.
Support.
All right, we'll have a roll call on this.
Okonski,
Yes.
Steele,
Yes.
Putz,
Yeah.
Goldsmith.
Yes.
Cullis,
Yes.
Kirkshank.
Yes.
All right, unanimous. Motion approved. Okay. Thank you. Moving on, again to commissioner staff comments. Richard?
Do we ever get a site plan on the review on the tank plant renovation there outside?
714,
Yes.
it's coming the next month.
Oh, okay.
It was supposed to be for this month, but they had some corrections to make due to Roe's review.
Okay. That's all I have.
The one question I have, this is before I was on the planning commission, but I'm just curious. I have found myself over at Mission Point in the last couple of months. Larry Lilly, for those of you that don't know, is there. And I just wonder when that site plan was approved, how it got approved with such a limited parking lot. There are 10 plus cars parked out in the street every time I'm there, and there's never a parking space inside. And I'm just curious how that got approved.
I agree. Yeah, it's covered up. The streets are.
Well, my concern is what are you going to do come winter?
Yeah.
I'm just curious how that.
Wow.
You weren't here either? I thought you've been on here forever.
I know I looked at it all, but
You know, I have noticed that other.
Mission Point was only approved a couple of years ago. You were on here.
oh, I'm thinking something else. All right. Mission Point, yes. I was,
I thought you were.
yes.
Yeah. I just wondered.
And you're talking about where now?
There's no.
I'm Sherwood.
I'm sorry?
313 Sherwood.
313 Sherwood. There's just, it's got such a small parking lot, and when you go by there, there are 10 cars parked out in the street.
At least.
Every day. Every time I've been there.
Seems to me the parking had two different areas on the site plans, and I want to say there were 30 some odd parking spots.
There is a lot of parking spots there, but they do park in the streets. I talked to Chief Story this morning about that, and he said there is no violation of the law there, and they are allowed to do that. So, there's no enforcement we can take on that. It's just Mission Point recognizing that they have an issue, excuse me, and then going to the necessary boards to get that fixed. But we can't.
Are they going to be able to, I mean, right now they park up kind of on the lawn, but
Yeah.
come winter when we do the plowing and it puts them out in the road, will
Well,
they?
last year and the year before, it was like that. I mean, this has been an ongoing problem. It's not.
Okay, well, like I said, I've only been going there for the last few months, but all of a sudden, I just wondered.
Technically, according to the village ordinance, they're allowed to park on the streets unless it's a snow emergency over 2+ inches. So that would be the only enforcement we'd be able to take on that if we did have an emergency road
Okay.
condition.
I wonder if there's been a change in their employment, where they had said we have X amount of employees, so that means X amount of spaces. Has that changed?
I mean, we're in there quite frequently, and I mean, it's not. It doesn't seem overcrowded in there.
Seems to me when I drive by, yes, you do see some cars there, but it seems to me like the
Absolutely.
parking lot has open spaces too.
Well, there's a couple, handicap too. So I mean, those are.
There's two handicap right by the entrance.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's an opening and sometimes there's not, but oftentimes there isn't an empty space anywhere and the street is covered. And I just wondered, I thought for a facility of that size, when that original plan came in, this might be a question for Road, do they usually predict what their employee count would be or what the people counts?
Yeah.
It's a requirement.
So what happens when the business shows up and like you asked, maybe they said they were going to have 20 employees and we find out they have 50. Is that a violation of the site plan?
I don't know how that would be enforced. I'd have to look.
I didn't know either. That's why I'm asking the question.
Technically, we have to take them at their word that this was their projections, and just because somebody grew after the fact that was unpredicted, I don't think there's any avenue to go after that
Existing
moving forward.
Right, and if the site plans, when they initially started
like I said, I just was surprised. It's like every time I'm there, they're everywhere. So that was my only question, well, along with the PUD, but she took care of that. So.
I've noticed that most nursing homes have the same problem, is because of the visitors that come in throughout the day, and they have no conception on how many visitors they're going to have. So they always have that problem.
Yeah, unfortunately, in our position, we can only go based on head count and square footage, and if they meet that, we don't have anything to stand on.
Interestingly enough, if you mention it's a problem in other communities, maybe that formula needs to be refigured for that kind of a business.
Yes, so if there was something that was an issue, the planning commission can always initiate to do a text amendment to increase that parking, especially if it's a known issue, instead of allowing different uses to have micro parking proactively to get them before, once you realize it's an issue, to then amend it and make it where the.
So if we ever get a second one in town,
Right.
we know better.
Or if it
Or
were
you can
to.
amend it now,
Yeah.
and then if they did any change of hands, then we could then hold them to
Correct.
following.
If
Yeah,
they
that
were
sounds
to-
like the appropriate way to go.
And if they were to do a building expansion of some capacity, generally that brings up your parking as well. So if you're talking about increasing your square footage, well, now you have to meet the standards of
The new
new parking for your.
So maybe that's something we should look at then.
Well, I've also talked to Josie, who's the head of management over there, and they are well aware of the problem. They are looking at ways to accommodate the cars that are out in the street. They have been in talks with the village to move forward with that, so hopefully here down the future we can see that that north end green space that they have would be new parking lots. But I think their problem is a 35% rule, so that's going in front of the zoning board of appeals to get a variance for the impervious surface. So I think that's where we're at now.
Do they own the property on the south end?
There's a fence there. They're pretty much landlocked right there.
Oh.
The only availability they have is at that green space right in the front where the flagpole is.
Right.
Well, the other possibility would be like for, as far as employees go, the fire route around the back of the building, if they were to widen a certain area that for angled parking, they could accommodate spaces along there.
Yeah, I think the state stepped in on the final C of O, and I don't know if that would fly. They were pretty strict about that. They had to illuminate it, and they had to increase the size of that path. So I think the state would step in and overrule our ruling on that, just because of their requirements, supersede ours.
Okay. That's it for me. Those are my questions.
Yeah.
I have nothing, thank you, Gary.
David?
I'm good for tonight, thank you.
Actually, I'm good also. For a change. All right. Public comments at the end. Anybody have anything to say? No one stepping forward. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Cricket.